Be searchable, be found, be everywhere. Rank higher with Siello SEO. Visit getsielloseo.com. Welcome back to the Good Vibes, guys. This is episode 21 of season 2. Thank you for joining me. And the last time we spoke, we were talking more solar business as well. And that's kind of what I do and what I love to do. I love meeting other people out there in the world and learning about different things as well, too. So I wanted to invite this gentleman here with me today, and we'll talk more about that in a second. I wanted to say welcome to Santo Capitello.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
All right.
Appreciate being on the show.
Santo is the CEO and founder of Siello SEO, and we're going to talk about his business in a little bit. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a background, folks, about what we're going to talk about. So if you're familiar with search engine optimization, then you kind of know what this is going to be about. For me, I'm old school. So I used to work for the old newspaper, the old radio station, the old television stations, and when we used to sell ads back then, it was either print ads, right? Or audio for radio stations, 30-second spots, 15-second spots, and so on and so forth. And same for TV, except TV, the way we sold it back then was sight, sound, motion, and emotion. So if I went to a customer and they were using the yellow pages, and usually the attorneys would be the ones that would say, well, I got a full page ad. You know, it's all ego for those guys. I'm like, great, well, let's turn the page. And I'm like, well, what happened to your ad? And they would get mad at me, and I would say, you turned the page, and that whatever you paid $5,000 for that ad, it's gone, you know. And I said, with TV, it's sight, sound, motion, and emotion, because you see that spot, you hit everybody, you know, every break during like Beverly Hills 90210, for example, back then when the TV show was popular, and that's how we sold a lot of ads. And then what happened was, when I worked for the Union Tribune in San Diego, we started noticing that they were also having us sell ads on the internet, because the newspaper had a website. And so we're selling ads, we're packaging things. So not just on print ads for quarter page ads or page ads or half page ads or full page ads, but also we would package it with, like, you know, their ads on our website as well. And then we started hearing things about AI and ChatGPT and things like that, which is something that I've been afraid of before, because I wasn't sure. I wanted to learn any new technology, and I just wanted to keep things simple. And that is why we have the CEO of Siello SEO here today. Santo, welcome.
Thank you again, Steven. It's a pleasure to be here and pleasure to connect with you once again.
The funny way that I met Santo was I was working with other companies in the past, and I just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. And in this business, you know, people can charge you whatever they want, for not only in the search engine optimization field, but also with, you know, other ads as well too. I know how that goes. And so he's helped me grow my business. And I really, really appreciate him simplifying it for me. And so I wanted to start out first by maybe having Santo and himself talk about his company and what he does.
Yeah. So Steven, yep, like you said, we help Steven's company grow in a very short period of time, and still have a lot of work ahead of us. So Siello SEO, we focused more on Google My Business page rankings, as well as optimizing just like even the map pack. So if someone's searching ideally for a restaurant in my area, wherever you are in that region, we rank you on that front page. Now, how it works, it's all data analytic driven. So we focus on what we call data aggregators, and there's about 3 of them out there. And there's many of others, but only 3 that we find that Google typically uses as a trust to build and authority. Now with directories, we get the name, address, and phone number, all consistent all across the board, and there's hundreds and thousands of directories. And what we do is we keep it all consistent. The consistency is key with the name, address, and phone number associated to the backlink of your Google business page. So over time, Google can build some trust, authority, show that you're a legitimate company. And then over time, as a couple of weeks, a couple of months churn, your business is more so optimized, and you show up on the rankings. So if someone's searching for a service or a restaurant and you happen to provide that service or have a brick and mortar or even HVAC, electrician, now you're in the running with the competitors. And now the phone rings a bit more and helps you generate more revenue and more so brand awareness.
Yep, yeah. I noticed that too, because when I looked at my list of directories, I was like, what is this? When I think of directories, I think of like phone directories and things like that, right? And so all these different names, and I'm thinking, there's a lot to learn. I mean, with that, the numbers went up, not just from people seeing my page, but I've seen some of my books have improved in sales as well too, because my page is linked to all of my books, and all of my books have their own pages as well. You talk about the data aggregators, you talk about the directories and all that. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this lingo is very foreign to most people, and when describing this, I'll say data aggregators, directories, and even yourself, you were like, huh?
Yeah,
So how it works, Google is a search engine, right? And then you
yeah.
have Bing, and then you have even Chat GPT, and I'll get into that in just a moment.
Okay.
Now, data aggregators, there's 3 of them, right? So how they work is it's more so they're data amplifiers. So when you have the right name, address, phone number, they distribute this business data to more of hundreds of partners, search platforms, navigation systems, mobile apps, right? So it reaches a broad audience. In other words, there's 3 sectors that we use: Foursquare, Data Axle, Localese. These are the analogy I use. It picture just a brain, right?
Hmm.
There's 3 sections to this brain, and there's 45 directories that we use. Those directories act as brain cells.
Hmm.
So if you don't store any memory, someone asks you a question, you're kind of clueless, right? You're kind of just sitting there, you're drooling on yourself.
Hmm.
Now, when we store this data into this sector, once it's complete, Google uses this information as a crosspath to say, oh, okay, yeah, we know, we know Carvel as an example, right? Located at XYZ in Brooklyn, New York. And now you start climbing up to the front of the front page and climbing and slowly getting up to the top. Now, a lot of people think, oh, you just need reviews and a Google business page and you're all set. Most times I'll see a roofing company, electrician that has poor reviews, 2 stars, sitting right above somebody that has 4.9 stars, has hundreds, maybe even thousands of reviews. And they're like, why are they in front of me? How is that possible? So when I refer back to the analytic report, I say, well, here's the reason why. They're not better than you. It's simply because their data is better than you.
Right.
And once you clean that up and optimize it over time, you start, climbing up, and guys that you think were better than you. And when truly it's just has nothing to do with that.
So, and you use certain terms, right? Like when we were setting mine up, you were asking me what are some of the maybe keywords or terms that might people might use to find you, you know, like books or author or music or that kind of stuff. Those are those some of the things that drive these
Yeah.
numbers?
And there's layers to it. So now I can kind of go further here. So once the NAP score is consistent in those directories, and you're, as an example, let's say junk removal, right? And you're looking for post-construction cleanup and so on. We use these keywords and we implement it to each directory. So if you're, as an example, you're a golf, a golf pro shop, irons, drivers, golf balls, golf gloves. And we take all these keywords, generate it 45 times over, as well as these three data aggregators. And then, you can't really get out 250 miles, but realistically in your local neighborhood, we'll gather a bunch of zip codes and I'll implement the zip codes as well. And
Yeah.
if there's certain areas you don't want to be found for in,
Mhm.
we try to avoid it by not putting that zip code. But if you're in a heavy dominant position, you may end up showing up there,
Yeah.
right? But at the same
Right.
time, those I hear like, oh, real estate agents or brokers. There's certain people that just say, oh, let's stay away from these areas, and so
Okay.
on. And I don't know what their strategies behind it, but I always ask, where do you want to service and where do you want to be? So that's how we align you to be in those direct positions.
Okay, okay. And also too, you do this geographically, right? Like in my case, for example, we went like a certain radius outside from where I'm based out of. Is that kind of that's kind of part of the plan?
That's correct. Yeah. So we start very small because if we, swing for the fences and let's say you want to go up to 100 or 150 miles, right? That's There's a lot of competition. So we like to start, maybe like 5, 10 miles radius within like the first month, just because we want to see, we're results driven, right? So we just want to see where you populate. This is an opportunity because this is for long-term success as well as covering some short-term goals. Now with the long-term success, we have to slowly open up those directories. Once you find that you've established connection with Google and built a relationship, then we feel comfortable. Okay, let's throw in more zip codes. Let's throw in more zip codes, or start using specific key areas like cities and states. And then after a while, it kind of branches.
Okay.
The other sector behind it is that you want to have a good functioning website as well, because Google will look into that. And as an example, like how you can service nationwide, even worldwide, right?
Right.
There's a relationship that even if the local search engine optimization can't put you in New York, right? You can't say an author in California is going to show up in New York on the Google search rankings, but
Hmm.
because you have a functional website, you have some healthy reviews, your information's correct. Now they're taking everything to a whole. So now your website can over time start expanding and showing up in other areas. And the transition to this, as well as that AI is so brand new, that SEO is literally the foundation of how AI is growing, like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, and so on.
Okay. Well, that makes sense because, you know, like take for example, television ads, right? We have the local sales rep that only sold to within the state of Hawaii, but we also have the national sales rep that geographically sold across the country and to large ad agencies. So if a customer had more money and they wanted to reach, you know, a wider spectrum, then they would do that, or they would work with the national people and they would sell there as well too, vice versa.
Could I
And
add
then,
into that real quick?
yeah,
When you mentioned the ads and the selling, right? There's
mm-hmm,
a lot of contractors, a lot of stores, a lot of individuals that like to pay for ads through Google, and it's called Google Guaranteed.
right,
I had a client that I worked with yesterday, matter of fact. He invests $3,000 a month alone in ads, and his SEO was he was working with someone, they didn't do it properly. He was sitting at a 56%, and he was showing up, anywhere between like 5 and 20.
mm,
And he's gets some phone calls, but he's looking to really take this at next level. And I said, well, if you're already showing up on the front page, you know, it's a data analytic issue. I'm sure, by correcting this, we'll start getting into that top five and that top three over time. You're just kind of, wasting money and just throwing it away into ads because you're already showing up there. So when you mentioned with ad spend, um, that's good if you want quick money and you want to stand out. But sometimes when you do Google Guaranteed, you don't know who if any of your competitors are doing Google Guaranteed and someone's throwing in 1,000 a month or 2,000 a month, and you say, you know what, let me run an ad for $200. If someone said to you, hey, do this and I'll give you $1,000, and I tell you to do the same thing, but I give you $5, you're most likely going to listen to the guy with $1,000 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Sometimes your ad doesn't have any success because of your ad spend due to a competitor, and they only show like 2 or 3 in that window, and there could be 10, 20.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally understand when you mentioned the ad space. It's a money pit, and then sometimes it takes away from individuals who aren't really don't know the ins and outs to SEO and how important it is and how it will always be there forever, that they ignore that.
Yeah.
And then it goes into a back and forth bidding war with ads, and then you kind of short your budget for the year, and then you're screwed.
Yeah. Right. So, like, with all the stuff we discussed right now, right? Is it better to go and talk more about Chat GPT or AI first? In
Yeah.
depth? And
Well,
if you
we
have
can kind
examples
of,
you can show.
yeah, we can relate the two. They go hand in hand, and a lot of people don't really know that.
Okay.
So where I would like to begin is that, you have these big box agencies.
Mm-hmm.
They run like different systems they look like they're revenue driven as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to results driven. So they train their salespeople, tell you there's something to do with Google, and then the next biggest thing is AI.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember anything that you pull on ChatGPT comes from the SEO world.
Mm-hmm.
So directories, right? If we're implementing you in 40 directories, or you're put into 100 backlinks,
Mm-hmm.
that's where AI is pulling from, because there's, 10, 20, 50, 100, thousands of resources to pull their data. We worked with a company in Kentucky about 2 months ago, 3 months ago now, and we said, you know what, we're going to implement more backlinks, and we're going to watch over time and see how ChatGPT reacts to this. And I was kind of testing the water, and I said, look, like, this is part of the package. We're not going to play any funny games here and say, all right, now we're going to get you on ChatGPT. It all goes hand in hand. And it worked. And they're showing up #1 in Oak Grove, Kentucky. They're showing up #1 in Kentucky in general.
Nice.
I actually did some research today, and we had found out they're starting to be found for Nashville. And if anyone's familiar with Nashville, there's a lot of poker, Texas Hold'em.
Mm-hmm.
They're very close to getting onto that front page when you type in, poker near Nashville.
Yeah.
The name of the company is the OG Clubhouse. So if anyone is listening and you're out in Kentucky, give them a visit too.
Nice. When I look at like ChatGPT and I look at AI, sometimes there's that fear that people can use it for the wrong reasons, right? I mean, of course we want to use it for the right reasons to grow our business, but then like, is it something that I fear that people will use it and it'll get out of control. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, taking away the SEO talk, I mean, AI it's dangerous. It's helpful, and it's also dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
because we're starting to notice that, and I'm starting to notice. I'm 31 years old, and I have a little brother who's 23 years old, and
You could both be my sons.
yeah, yeah, right. They're using it like to their advantage, but it's becoming a lazy generation. You
Yeah.
know,
Mm.
I give a lot of credit to those that are, handwrite everything. I mean, you can put together an email in a matter of 30 seconds, and it's smart because it takes a lot of, you can allocate more time in your day.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also, hear the AI calls they're robots, they're scamming people. AI is intelligent, obviously, and you can also make AI as smart as you want it to be with your business and with your own with your own information. But sometimes it's a little too powerful, and we just don't know what direction it's going. And outside the business world, and just real life stuff, could get a little scary when you realize you could just put in something and it could just give you, an owner's name, to a home or any of, the above. There's no privacy, really, to say the least.
Okay. Yeah, I know. When it was first coming out, and then there was fear, like all over the place. People were like, oh, AI, steer from AI. But then I thought, if you use it properly, it should be fine. But still,
Hmm.
yeah, there are people who can use it wrong too. I mean, we've heard stories about some of the people who have developed AI for their businesses and it turns against them. I'm not going to get political, but I've heard it out there. If you know what I mean.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
um, I don't know if we exhausted talking about Chat GPT and AI. Did you want to say anything more about that or give us other examples related to that and SEO before I ask my next question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I went over it a bit more, but to kind of jump into it, like what I provide as a very small business owner, and as we're growing, right? Like a lot of companies like to include upselling. We're very straightforward. When we do your SEO and we help you get ranked on Google and so on, right? We always say, hey, listen, with the information that we're implementing, AI eventually is gonna take this, and I don't know about you, or if anyone that you associate with. As much as I'm Googling, I'm also using Chat GPT as a resource as well.
Hmm.
I'm looking, if I'm out with friends, and I'm saying, hey, best restaurants in my area, I'm on vacation, and I'm on Chat GPT, it really gives you the same results, um, roughly almost the same as Google.
Mhm.
They just mirror each other. So if you're, as a business owner, with the way the world's evolving, and sometimes it's hard for people to go with the times, right?
Yeah.
Like, I texted you early this morning, and you said, "Oh, I'm so used to the old school way," and I responded back, I'm like, "Yellow pages and a phone and a landline."
Right.
Maybe
Exactly.
email. And now
Yeah.
you have Chat, GBT, you have all
Yeah.
all the similar AI platforms, the Google digital ads, social media, Instagram,
Oh yeah.
Facebook. Um, it's interesting, and really to sum this up is that when you do SEO, you are setting the foundation of your online business.
Yeah.
Anything that you do, you're building a house, right? So when you
Right.
have a visibility score of 40% and you look to build the walls, you build the roof, it's going to crumble down because
Hmm.
you keep paying ad. Eventually
Right.
it runs out, and everything stems from SEO. And a lot of small business owners think it's creating a Google business page. They think it's just creating social media.
Mhm.
If you want long-term success, you have to understand that you have to look into search engine optimization to get everything grounded, to build trust and authority with the web, and everything you build on top of it. Um, you can grow that house as big as you want. It could be a mansion, or you could leave it small. It depends
Right.
on the route that individuals like to go.
It's interesting how you talk about this because like I'm in my 60s now. That's why I say you can be my son. My son's like going to be 36, I think, this year. My daughter's going to be 27. They're like 9 years apart. So you and your
Wow.
brother could be my sons. But I what I'm getting at is, back in the day, when we used to sell ads, a lot of it was all we still had paper, so we had to fill out these forms and submit them. Oh, so and so wants 5 30-second ads doing Beverly Hills 90210. And I know it's funny because I'm talking about these old shows that some people may not even be familiar with, but then digital stuff started coming through, and we're all like, oh, how do I do this? How do even like the old customers would like drop off a video cassette or a beta tape, for their
Wow.
spots. Now they just send the files electronically and boom, you're done, you know. So it's just interesting, and then came all this chat GPT and AI. And so it gets overwhelming for somebody like me who's so used to doing things the old school way. And that's why I wanted to interview you to learn more about what because all the younger generation, I look at my son and my daughter-in-law, even my grandson who's only 3, he's doing stuff that's more digital now. And I'm like, I everything was books to me, back then. So
Yeah.
it's really it's helping me to sort of get a better grasp of search engine optimization and how ChatGPT and AI works with it as well too. Um, now you talked about how, you're straightforward, you keep it simple, your customers give you their budget and this, they tell you what they want to do, or you tell them this is what it's going to cost, right? Um, but I'm thinking down the road, even for me as a customer, I might want to grow some more and I might, need you to say, hey, where can I go from here on out? So from what I'm doing now with my project, what would possibly be, I don't know if you know or remember off the top of your head what we're doing, but because you have a lot of customers, but like if I wanted to do next steps and grow, you know, where would you take me using this
Yeah.
technology?
So aside from starting small with Google My Business page ranking, off-page SEO, we also offer aside from we offer web development.
Okay.
That's the next phase over time, and on top of that, we do on-page SEO, which I have a partner who handles the website aspect because that's a little too advanced for me.
Hmm.
And that's how we kind of correspond together hand in hand, how we can help a business grow through the simple search, getting your website found, adding and then we also do much of I don't like to be focused on ads,
Yeah.
right? Once you're 100% and you're growing locally and everything's going great, but you really want to take it to that next level, right?
Hmm.
That's when we implement, a potential ad campaign when we want to, let's say, cover the East Coast, cover the Midwest, and we're, in sunny California.
Hmm.
SEO can only go so far and take it to so many places.
Right.
So instead of throwing everything at once, right? We believe in our strategy is taking it step by step because
Yeah.
you may not need all the extra bells and whistles, but if you want, in your situation, there are additional steps to grow over time.
Hmm.
Because if you do everything all at once and you manipulate the system, sometimes it backfires on you. And
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
some can agree, some may disagree, and that's totally fine. But from my personal experience, I've seen a lot of success doing everything at once, and other
Yeah.
times I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm very careful in that I, like to see growth spurts here and there, and then I assess and I reassess to see where I need to go to next. So I appreciate that. So it sounds like with your company with Cielo SEO, you're focused more on the engine part of it, of driving the business with the customer. They have their ads, they have all the creatives and all that, although you may be able to do that. But I think you're more concerned about helping them take all that information and driving that growth for them in the markets that they look at, right? That to grow in.
That's correct. So I feel like everybody in this world has something to offer, right? So I'm sure there's plenty of other SEO people. There's other ad campaign individuals. I'm like I said, I've said to you, and I've proven it to you that I'm results driven. That I like to focus and be obsessed with one aspect, then kind of unfamiliar myself with some other areas just because I can offer more,
Yeah.
right? And I have partners and I have people out in the industry that we have relationships with that will refer each other. Anyone for a specific ad campaign that I can't handle.
Yeah.
If he's an individual is doing a website and says, hey, they want to grow on Google Maps, it's a law firm or so on, I'll send them to you. We have
Nice.
relationships because at the end of the day, my goal is to help small business owners grow,
I like
right?
that. Yeah.
And ideally, if there's something that I can't help you with, I have a ton of resources and a ton of connections, and I'm not worried about the dollar. I'm worried about you growing your business because when you succeed with me, that's when I win. When I get you where you need to be, you win, and vice versa. And that's the way I believe in building relationships with individuals than worrying about a sale. Do quick work and move on.
Hmm. With Cielo SEO, are you guys focused more on American-based businesses and helping them geographically, grow here in the 48 states and maybe 50 states, or do you also go globally as well too?
Right now, I've been focused United States based. We are also growing ourselves slowly, and I don't want to take on too much. And as the process has gone on and proven a lot of success, I feel that maybe in a couple of years, we're going to take it to that next step. Once I have a better system in place where I can, intake well over 50 to 100, 250 employees, wherever this path takes me.
Mhm.
My whole goal one day is to help every business owner, wherever we are in the world, grow. And of course, I'm going to have to learn a lot of languages, or
Yeah,
may
yeah.
have to find reps that could, over time in their area. But it's a good question. I never really thought of it that way. But I mean, when I put my mind to something and I'm passionate about growing, I'm going to go as the full potential possible.
Yeah. Well, I asked that question only because two things. Like years ago, even back as far back as when I was in college in the 80s, um, we looked at because we were more focused on America, right? Then we were like, we're going global now. We're working with Japan, and we're working with China, and we're working with Europe, and we're working all these places. And even now, even though there's politics going on in the world, it's still global. I mean, every country is trying to work with each other to grow their own economy, right? So
Yeah.
to see this at this point in time, that's why I asked that question of you. And I know you're still a young company, but I can see you certainly going in that direction. Um, Next question was future technology. We've talked about search engine optimization and how ChatGPT and AI works with that. You give me some other new terms, the NAP scores, Google guarantee
The
and all
data
this other.
aggregators, the directories, all the
Yeah.
fun lingo.
Is there anything in your industry that's forthcoming, in the next 5 to 10 to 20 years that you've been studying and watching or observing, that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be very forward here, uh, a lot of us are also at times learning as we go. You
Hmm.
know, I don't. We're all not geniuses. We're all not perfect. We have, I myself, eat, sleep, live this for many of years. And Google, implements new strategies. Oh, now we need this requirement. Now we need this requirement. And as things, there's always gonna be hurdles in anything in life, right?
Hmm.
If it happens in the business, I mean, it's kind of more learning a little bit about it, um, focusing on it, and then go into our potential prospects, some of our clients, that hey, listen, now we have to start doing X, Y, Z because I don't know what it is,
Hmm.
but over time, sometimes that does happen. Now, I'll give you a good example. So prior to 2020, um, SEO was always a big thing,
Hmm.
but sometimes you can manipulate rankings, whether
Right.
just getting a bunch of friends to leave a bunch of reviews and making a bunch of fake Google My Business pages.
Yes.
And when kind of the world shut down, you have the people, you have the individuals that do business illegally, that don't have a license, that claim they're plumbers or, painters and so on. And they were doing it on the side from their full-time job.
Hmm.
And I knew this because when I worked at this one of those big box agencies, right?
Hmm.
I was on the phone with an individual, and he had 22 Google My Business pages, and that's when Google said, "Hey, we got to start focusing how to separate these fake pages and you know
Mm.
the real business owners that put the time and effort into SEO. We have to figure out that difference, and that's where that name, address, and phone number consistency came into play. And it's always existed. It's just they
Hmm.
really cracked down on it,
Yeah.
and all those pages were suspended. This guy's like, the phone's
Wow.
not ringing, yada yada yada. And I started talking to him more, and I said, well, you know. Your information is, we need the legal business information. And it was kind of like quiet on the other end. And that's
Hmm.
why I learned. I said, wow, people are really trying to get over at that given time. And it's not fair to, let's say, like my uncle is a landscaper out in the Poconos, always held the dominant rank from like 1 to 5. And then a couple of months, people are really scrounging and picking up new trades and buying a lawnmower, said they're a landscaper.
Yeah.
He's like, I dropped to like 16th, 17th position. And it's a mess. So when you had mentioned that, you kind of just have to educate, learn a bit more about it, emphasize that, and you know, point out pain points,
Right.
and so on. And that typically that kind of stopped. I think a lot of people are now. It's been about 5 years have
Hmm.
learned a little bit about it,
Yeah.
but not enough people know about it.
This is just so exciting. I know we didn't take any breaks, but that's okay. I'll figure this out when I edit this show.
Yeah,
But
no worries.
you know, let's talk about the search engine themselves because Google is one of the strongholds in the industry, but Apple has their own search engine. And remember the old days they had Ask Jeeves and some of the
Yeah,
others. Um, like what happened to those? And like, is Google king with the search engine right now? Because they seem like they're the ones that are being used the most when we're driving our numbers for us advertisers.
yeah. It's so funny. While you're asking about Ask Jeeves, I myself really don't know what happened. Um,
It just kind
wh-
of disappeared or something.
yeah, no. That's a very good question, and it's nostalgic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but they said Ask Jeeves. Now it's called Ask.com. It's a question and answer site as well as a search engine that allows users to browse the web for answers. And Ask Jeeves was shut down because of Ask.com. The company behind it wanted to undergo a rebrand to further enhance its position in the search industry. Now, kind of hearing that, you just can't beat Google.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
I mean, because everybody
Bing's
was
another one.
there's that term, right? Google it, right? But I don't know, Google it.
Yeah, and now it's Chat GPT, and I'm guilty.
Oh,
I say it all the time. uh, Yeah, I want to. It's funny enough. ChatGPT. We're gonna search something.
okay, good. I'm glad you're doing that as we
Let's
speak.
see what happened to the other search. Kind of asking whatever happened to all those search engines, like Ask Jeeves. I mean, it makes you
Yeah,
really wonder.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's there's people are. I guess people are still using Yahoo,
yeah.
um,
That's right. Yahoo's the other search engine.
but and Bing because that's typically on
Oh,
Microsoft. And I have an
Microsoft is.
HP.
Yep, yep.
But I go through that. But yeah, I mean, it's really Google and Bing and
Is
Yahoo, of
Apple's
course.
Apple's search engine even worth it anymore? That don't they have their own search engine as well?
Wasn't that Safari?
Yes, Safari.
Yeah. As I was downloading Google Chrome on my new laptop, I had noticed Safari was out there, but Apple's developing now. It's called a next generation search engine,
Oh,
codenamed called Pegasus.
oh,
So I don't know. That came from Copilot, very similar to ChatGPT.
yeah.
Um, I'm sure there's going to be something coming along, and Apple's looking to add AI search engine to Safari, right? So
There you go.
um, that's
They're
what
trying.
we're.
They looks like they're going to compete against Google. I mean, look, Google's laying off a bunch of people. So is Apple. So I'm wondering if they're going to have enough engineers to figure this out. To keep the
Well, that's
competition strong.
that's what we're going with. Like when you mentioned, um, Drawn. It's been a long day. Excuse me.
It's okay. It's okay.
Search engines, right? And aside from search engines, like go into AI. Like AI
Yeah.
is just replacing jobs. I
Yeah.
mean, you
Right.
kind of saw it with the self checkout. Is
Yes.
as crazy as it
Just
sounds.
supermarket alone. Exactly.
Yeah. And now it's turning into it's kind of sad, and it's makes it like
Yeah.
a lot of layoffs, a lot of jobs being lost, and AI is replacing a lot. Everyone was afraid, or maybe from what I heard, oh, Google is going to take like now, like AI is really taking jobs away from people.
Yeah. I mean, I see that, but I also feel like there's opportunity for us to be as human beings smart, right? Use our education, use our brains about, how we're going to adapt to this, with whatever skills we have. I mean, easier said than done, but I think when it comes to survival, the human being has to think about that too. I mean,
Correct.
that's just how I look at it. Like there's nothing we can do because we're already the world's going forward with AI and all this stuff that what can you do except reinvent yourself somehow?
Yeah, and speaking of AI, when it was in early stages, when it was kind of being tested many years, within the last 10 years. My mother's a medical transcriptionist, and that industry doesn't even exist anymore.
Yes.
She's now working with lawyers, but I'll never forget it. They laid her off. They went with this software. So whenever the doctors were dictating and saying what they say, the system was typing it up.
Yep.
And I'll never forget. My mother got a phone call from her old boss, and they said, "Hey, we're going to bring you and some of the girls back." And they were all very excited when they found out. They were supposed to amputate the right arm. They amputated both arms because they amputated the wrong arm because of AI and picking it up.
Right.
And there was a major lawsuit, and it changed an individual's life forever. And that's when, I remember hearing about, I've always been adapted to the internet and loved,
Yeah.
software and all sorts of stuff. And I just remember being young here, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that makes you wonder, what does the near future look like? And it's gotten a lot better, but sometimes, like, yeah, we have to think, we have to use our brains. You can't
Yeah.
just be lazy enough. Otherwise, you might as well put a microchip in your head.
Right. No, it's a
You
good
know?
point. I look back at, my wife and I come in at the tail end of the baby boomer generation. And before that, like my dad, who was early, I don't know if it was even a baby boomer. He was born in 1914, but his generation and the folks between him and us, that technology wasn't a thing for them. And then came us, and then we had to like learn. I mean, what was it? I went to take a COBOL class. COBOL class, yeah, for computer like programming. I
Okay.
was bored out of my mind. I was bored out of my mind. It wasn't my thing. I'm more of a performer. That's kind of like what I've, done. And I can get up and speak in front of the crowd and that kind of stuff. But so I only took one class with COBOL and I said, screw this. Somebody else can learn about how to use a floppy and whatnot, right? So
Yeah.
fast forward, by the time I graduated, I was like on the 6 year plan, taking my time. By the time I graduated, they were already talking about some of the future stuff. And I'm thinking, wow, when I get married and start having kids, what are they going to be learning? And so, the things that we taught our kids, your generation,
Yeah.
is so obsolete now that our kids are like teaching us some of the stuff. And I look at my daughter and I go, I don't want to learn this. Can you just do this for me? Because I don't care about this right now.
It
But
it makes
I
a
think
lot of sense.
you guys is prepared your generation by the time you guys went into high school and college and all that. It was already talking about all this stuff. Like it was normal for you guys. And you guys are part of the video game generation. I mean, Atari was out when I was in high school, and I wasn't really even into Atari at the time. I was still into board games and playing outdoors, riding my bike, and then came my son, and he was like, I want to play video games, Dad. I'm like, let's go outside and run around and play basketball. I was like, well, I can do that too, but I want to play video games.
I mean, I was pretty fortunate. I believe I told you I grew up in Brooklyn, New York,
Mhm.
and at that time in the neighborhood, we were out there riding bikes, playing street hockey, playing wiffle ball, baseball, basketball, throwing a football in the street, playing board games, and then I had the PlayStation 2, and it's just it wasn't until my brother being born, we're 8 years apart, and he was like 3 years old. And I remember this time we moved to New Jersey, and I was playing my PlayStation, and I had it on pause, and he just walked in. He barely talks, and he just picks up the remote, and they adapt to it. And then now you look today's time, and they're like toddlers or kids or little small kids are at the restaurant playing with the iPad, and I'm like, so like I'm telling you, I'm like as if I'm your age right now, but I was fortunate enough to live that tail end of
Yeah,
what it was like playing outside. Like I
yeah,
drive around and you don't even see kids outside ever playing in the street anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Very rare in my complex, the kids are getting together playing, but like you don't really see that anymore.
yeah. No, I
It's
mean,
very interesting what you mentioned. It makes me feel like I was fortunate enough to experience that and live both old world and new world.
yeah. No, I mean, phone booths are gone, right? And I remember the
Gone.
phone booths went from the dial pad to like the ketone pads, and the kids don't know what a dial pad is. I mean, I was tutoring for junior high one year, and the kids were like, Mr. Steve, what is that? I was like, it's a phone. They're like, no, that's not. There's a little circular thing. I'm like, yeah, we used to stick our finger there and go like this. 6, 7, like that. Well, is there anything else I know, it's, what is it? We've been together almost an hour, I think,
Yeah, it's been just about an hour actually.
I just couldn't let up on the conversation just because it's been so interesting. Is there anything else you want to talk about that we haven't touched on with SEO and
Yeah, there's one thing I want to put out there for all small business owners. The relation how first off, I just want to explain how when I first got into SaaS, software as a service, I never knew what SEO was. I went into this one agency and I learned SEO that way.
yeah,
I gravitated from being in a sales career to learning how this really works and how this helps individuals. Now,
yeah,
along the way, I always heard individuals saying, "Oh, I signed up with voice search," and then they say they go on Cortana, I go on Amazon Alexa, and so on. They go, "I do the search, and I'm not found for."
yeah,
And after a while, that's not a service that I provided at the time, or I was just selling for a company. And I'm like, voice search. I'm like, you can't predict somebody on voice search. Everything translates to SEO, and a lot of the issue is the reason why I got out of big box, the big box agency term, working for these head honchos. I learned that voice search, anyone that's listening, voice search is not a real thing.
yeah,
And I didn't like that. That was part of a front sale. As I was there for about 2 years or so, I learned that something just clicked in my head, and I'm like, that's not a real service.
yeah,
And there are hundreds of thousands, and I'm sure there were millions of business owners over time thinking that they can invest in this small thing called voice search.
yeah,
SEO is what helps you get found for on the voice search.
yeah,
Um, because simply it's just drawn the data in those directories. So when you're showing up in the top 3 on Google, and you're a pizzeria in Lyndhurst, New Jersey, and you happen to say, "Oh, Villa Italia is #1" on a physical search, 99% of the time when you speak into it,
yeah,
it's going to then give you that same result. Um, a lot of business owners have been victims of voice search,
mhm,
and there's been millions of dollars and lots of money circulating because of those type of agencies.
yeah,
Trust me when I tell you, the only thing that you ever need to do as a small business owner to first start off, the #1 thing, aside from making sure you're a legal business with an entity and an EIN number, is make a Google business page. You need local search engine optimization, because once that business page is found for, then your website's found for. A lot of
right,
people go website first. How does the website get found for if there's no search engine optimization nor you have any online presence?
right.
Um, and anyone that listens, listening to this podcast and want to pick my brain apart, I have no problems giving out a free audit, a free 30-minute consultation. Of course, I'm not nitpicky on the time. My goal, and I feel like my what I contribute into this world is helping you grow, escalate, so this way you guys could get a real honest answer and put yourself in a better position than where you were. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I worked with 5 SEO agencies. It doesn't work." I want to let you guys know it works. If you work with
Yeah.
the right people, the software works, and the opportunities could be there for you.
Well, that's worked for me, and I appreciate you. Santo Capitelli, will you come back and join us again another time for maybe a
Absolutely, I
follow-up
would love
show?
to pick up this conversation and talk again, and kind of give you an update, and as well as the world where we're going to go next, because we're never going to fade away.
And if you need some help, folks, with your search engine optimization, you can contact him at getcielo.com,
There you go. Get
getcielo.com,
SEO.com. That's right.
and he'll help you. Hey, I appreciate you coming on board. I had so much fun talking about this. I never thought we were going to go that far back in time for me, but we did.
It's good to hear about it.
All right. Thanks for joining us on Boison's Place, folks. Join us again next week. Be searchable, be found, be everywhere. Rank higher with Siello SEO. Visit getsielloseo.com.